Test. Good morning, Vikings fans. Welcome to the Yellow Horn. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're talking about that debacle that Ravens yesterday. I don't even know where to start. Normally, I take notes and usually have somewhat of a script to go off of. I know it's hard to tell, but yesterday was just such a strange game. It felt uglier than the score suggests. I know the Vikings had a chance to go down and tie towards the end of the game, but I think that's where everybody's frustration really sets in. Let's start with the good. The good yesterday was the defense. I felt they played fairly well. I do think there was their usual shortcomings. I mean, towards the end of the first half, I want to say under like 4 minutes or so, they were getting gashed by the run game again in the second half too. The passing, the middle was open on some big plays, but all in all, they played solid. Keeping Lamar in the pocket for the most part, just keeping the Ravens in check. I really expected them to kind of come out and be pretty high scoring. So to hold them to 3 field goals in the first half was, really solid by the defense. I know they didn't come away with any turnovers, which seems to be a theme this year, and it's kind of the difference between last year and this year. I think this year you can see more holes in the defense because they're not getting the timely turnovers that they did last year. Last year they had a lot of the same problems, the secondary. And we've talked about it in videos before with the way Flores blitzes, it leaves the middle open. So it is what it is. Overall, though, they did play well enough yesterday and kept this team in the game. Another positive I want to say yesterday was at least the first drive with JJ McCarthy. You've seen him hang in the pocket. That pass to Justin Jefferson towards the sideline there. He got clobbered as he threw it, completed it. It was an accurate ish throw, considering he was getting, again, hit. And then that throw to Naylor was, perfect. So, you see those glimpses and then you see kind of the rest of the game. And we know that's the roller coaster, the fans are calling him a bust already. You know, uh, he doesn't have it. He's shook. He's 4 games in. We knew it was going to be a roller coaster with ups and downs, especially with his mechanics. He was drafted overall, 10th overall, whatever it was, but he was more of a project quarterback. I mean, his mechanics from the get-go have always been an issue, especially with that leg kick and things, he can get away with in college, you're not going to get away with in NFL, It's just not there. So that tends to be his issues when it comes to accuracy. He opens up his body when he does the legs and his leg kick and his passes start to sail on him. And if you were listening to, I think it was Ben Lieber this morning on KFan, he said where he's missing is not where you want to miss. You don't want to miss going high because that's where tip balls come into play, interceptions, and that's also how you get your wide receivers killed. You rather have it thrown short, throw it wide out of bounds, like those type of things, not hospital walls that your wide receivers have to stretch out for. Um, that's really I mean, there wasn't a lot of good in yesterday. I mean, Will the Thrill coming through like he does. He's been clutch this year. Um, but for the ugly, it's JJ's accuracy was terrible in the second half. People are making, excuses for KOC and his game plan. You can't. You just cannot justify his game plan. Having your basically a rookie quarterback throwing 42 times a game. It's just not there. The score was 10-9 coming out of the half. There was zero reason to basically abandon the run. Zero. I think Mason and Jones are averaging, I want to say it was like 6 yards a carry or 5.5, 6 yards a carry. Like there's just no reason for it, and it's inexcusable. And he does this far too often. He's done it year after year after year, and we really thought that this year would be the year he sticks to the run after beefing up the line, starting a rookie quarterback. You got to hand off the ball and trust that your line can get 1 yard. And, that 3rd and 1 where JJ threw the INT, where it was the 50-50 ball up to Jefferson, you heard in the post game, from KOC, it was zero coverage. We're going to take one-on-one all day. Then you heard McCarthy talk about it. I have the greatest wide receiver in the world. I'm going to take that all day. it's great to say those things, and we could sit here and say hindsight it was, the wrong call, but those are the type of calls that don't protect your young quarterback. Um, you know, why take the risk? Oh, well, we were going to go it on fourth down. Well, you don't get a fourth down if, it gets picked off as it did. You have to see what's there. And I think people are starting to see the holes in Kevin O'Connell's game. I don't think he's as great as of an offensive coordinator as people make him out to be. I don't truly think he's this great QB whisperer because if he was, he'd be putting JJ in better positions than he has. And I'm not saying like the blame is doesn't go both ways. You know, if JJ completes some of these, you know, uh, bad throws, it changes the stuff. But you have to take the easy ones that are there. So 3rd and 1, run the damn ball. You're averaging 5 yards a carry. There's 0 reason you can't run the ball there. Um, and that's been a knock on KOC. Again, we come back to that, but it's not like he made Kirk Cousins all of a sudden some great QB. Kirk Cousins was a decent QB before KOC. You know, uh, you know, Sam Darnold was a first round pick, a first pick, number one pick. So the talent was always there. And he had time to mature. It wasn't like, he got dumped by the Jets, the Vikings picked threw him in, and all of a sudden he was great. No, it takes time. Some of these QBs take time to just mature in the game to slow down on them. Look at like Baker Mayfield. All of a sudden he's thriving in Tampa. It's just you know, Daniel Jones didn't do anything for the Vikings, so I don't know why KOC's getting credit for that. Like he just came and sat in, and maybe KOC gave him a different view of the game or how to prepare for a game, but he didn't do anything. And I think he gets too much credit for what he's done with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold. Um, and we've seen I don't think we've seen him put JJ in the best situations. Honestly, if I thought he was truly this great QB whisperer, JJ wouldn't have been playing. They would have found a way to sign Sam Darnold for a year or two, let JJ sit on the bench, and you know, uh, learn from Sam for a couple years and have the game slow down. Now, again, yeah, hindsight's always 2020. Well, yeah, we didn't know JJ, but we're evaluating talent here, and we're evaluating the QB position, and clearly they thought JJ was ready, and so far it doesn't look like he is. And I know I'm getting a lot of heat for posting Peyton Manning stats this morning and comparing it to JJ. And it wasn't to compare the two quarterbacks. It was more about it takes patience. Rookie quarterbacks are going to have up and downs, and Sam Darnold's a perfect example of that. Baker is a perfect example of that. Like sometimes it just takes time, but we can't just sit there and say we're going to bench JJ or he's a bust because his first 4 games didn't go according to plan. You have to look at the whole scope of things. Was he truly ready to go in there? Is he coming off injury? Did he have a full preseason? No, no, no. And these aren't excuses for JJ, missing what should be simple throws. It's just saying that like there's reasons why the kid's not up to speed yet. And we have to look at the coaching staff. Are they truly putting him in the best positions to win? You always hear that, hey, for a rookie quarterback, a tight end and the running backs are their best friends. Are we utilizing them? I don't think so. I I don't think KOC's handling the situation as good as he possibly could. And he says a lot of nothing in his press conferences. There's people said that, he just does a word salad, and it's true. He always comes out and has, a rebuttal for what is being asked of him. And I get it. He can't come out and just say, yeah, I screwed up or whatever. But it would be nice for him to just say, yeah, you know what? I'd like to have that one back. I could have put, McCarthy in a better position on that particular play. Like it wasn't the best play call in that particular situation. I think KOC is super relatable. I do think the players like him, but I do think his situational awareness when it comes to play calling isn't as crisp as it needs to be for this particular situation. And another thing that I took heat for yesterday was saying that this team needs to play perfect. They do. The defense isn't good enough to stop teams, and the offense isn't good enough to make up playing from behind. Um, They can't go down a touchdown or two and be expected to come back and win the game. And I mean, when you have, 8 false starts, you have Miles Price fumbling twice, you have the JJ interceptions. These are reasons why the team has to be as close to perfect as can be because they can't withstand those types of turnovers. Um, and I think that's why it's a frustrating game yesterday. You look at all these things and been like, yep, he doesn't fumble there. He doesn't throw that ball. We pick up the 3rd and 1. Well, we're in plus territory. At least it's a chance to come away with a field goal. If we don't pick up, if we're going to go for it in 2 down territory and get within, the 40 or whatever, there's just those little things like that. You can look at the game and come away extremely frustrated with it. And a lot of that stuff points to situational football that needs to be cleaned up. Undisciplined, not protecting the ball, having these false starts. Like this is all stuff that points back to the head coach. And I'm not saying fire KOC. Again, I do think he's a good coach. I do think the players like him, but they need to find a way to get out of what they're doing. And I'm just not sure how to do that. That's my rant on this. I know it was a lot. We got the Bears this week, and their fans have been talking so much shit already, about Caleb. We got to come away with another W here if we're going to have any chance, at least at the division. We got the Bears, we got the Packers coming up. We got to clean up these little things, go out and find a way to get these W's if we want to have a chance. All right. Talk to everybody later. Skull.